So now let's look at gymnosperm diversity. Generally speaking, a gymnosperm appeared around 305 million years ago. They are literally translated into the naked seed, and that seed develops naked out and open on that bract. Many of them you can tell apart by looking at the kinds of leaves. They do not have a flower and a fruit. Now, as we get farther and farther into gymnosperm diversity, you may see that they have fleshy seeds, but botanically speaking, that is not a fruit. Some of them make very important mutualistic relationships with fungi and bacteria, and we'll look at some of them. And what we have left in the diversity of life on Earth does not represent the true diversity and dominance that these wonderful trees once knew. Checking in with taxonomy, you should know exactly where you are. Domain Eukarya, supergroup Archaeplastida, kingdom Plantae. Those should be repetitive by now, and you should be understanding where exactly you are. The phylogram should reinforce the idea that we're trying to get across that gymnosperms and angiosperms have a common ancestor, but did not evolve from one another. We're going to look at 4 phyla. Let's see the next slide. I like to break down the taxonomy, so here it is. We've got phylum Coniferophyta, phylum Cycadophyta, phylum Ginkgophyta, and phylum Gnetophyta. And you can see we generally speaking have one organism per. We'll look at the pines, we'll look at the cycads, we'll look at Ginkgo biloba. That is actually the only member of phylum Ginkgophyta. And then you see with phylum Gnetophyta, we have 3 different representatives, and those are 3 very strange plants. There's a lot of diversity here, but we'll look at some representative organisms, the pines, cypresses, spruce, redwoods, hemlocks, junipers, and the yews, a great big diverse group of cone-producing plants. This group is the largest of all the gymnosperms. They are mostly monoecious. Hopefully you recall that monoecious means that the male and the female are on the same plant. Dioecious is going to be a rule throughout the rest of the gymnosperms. So a sort of unique Coniferophyta characteristic is that they are the only monoecious group of cone producers. Their leaves are the scale-like leaves like the needles like you're used to. They are considered evergreen. They do lose their leaves. It's just a continual replacement of the leaves. They are used economically, mostly as lumber. This group includes our pine trees, and they are harvested for their soft woods. We'll see that the angiosperms have wood too, but they are more of a hardwood. So they're harvested for softwood, which makes them excellent for paper products. Here's a bald cypress, another Coniferophyta. This is an iconic swamp tree, very important to Texas history as it represents a major tree in the Caddo Lake ecosystem, the only naturally occurring lake in Texas. Here's the spruce, iconic triangle shape, bundles of leaves, make excellent Christmas trees. The giant sequoia trees, the redwoods of California. Hemlocks, which are the redwood of the east. This is a threatened tree. Junipers, which are mistakenly thought of as cedar trees, they are everywhere. They are actually an invasive native, meaning they belong here. They're a tree that is okay to be here, but they've just outgrown their niche, and they've grown into other niches. So even invasive plants can be native plants. And here's a dangerous tree. All parts of the yew plant are poisonous, particularly the seeds. Lethal doses in only a small amounts. The chief symptom is death. It's okay. There's no treatment for it anyway. Here's our second phylum of gymnosperms that we'll look at, phylum Cycadophyta, and we'll look at one representative organism, the cycas, or the sago palm. This is an ancient group of plants, sort of a iconic plant if you think about the Jurassic period. They even call it the age of the cycas. Slow-growing and long-lived, compound palm-like leaves. It is not a palm. A palm is a flowering plant. These are dioecious. Again, the only monoecious gymnosperms that we'll look at are the Coniferophyta. They're perennials, which means they come back year after year after year. Sometimes not here in Texas, but they come back year after year, and contrast perennial with the annual, which is you plant it once and it dies, or the biennial, which it grows for 1 year and then flowers the next. So perennials come back year after year, and that doesn't mean that they don't die back or look like they've died over the winter, but they come back every spring. Again, palm-like, but they're not palms. So quack, quack, stay away from those common names. And then it was linked with cyanobacteria of the genus Nostoc. The nostoc helps fix nitrogen for this plant, and it was linked to Alzheimer's disease in a very strange case on the island of Guam. There was a flying fox bat that eats the seed of the cycad, and the seed of the cycad contained some of the toxin produced by the nostoc. So inside the bat there was an amplification signal that caused massive influx of Alzheimer's disease. And the explanation for it is this happened post-World War II, in which there was ample weapons to catch this flying fox bat. So it's sort of a neat medical history behind plants, bacteria, and flying foxes. There's a cycad. You can see here the dioecious nature. They are either male, like you see on the left here, or female, and you can see the female cone tends to have a more papery or feathery appearance. Definitely a male. So our third phylum of gymnosperms is phylum Gymnosperm, and we'll only look at one organism because there is only one organism to look at in phylum Gymnosperm. It's a very unchanged specimen. It is the only species left, the only extant species. Extant is the opposite of extinct. It is resistant to pollution. In fact, it is pollution philic. It loves it. Again, it's dioecious. Only the Coniferophyta would have the monoecious. Where can you find one? There's some at the Irving Convention Center. We've seen some downtown. They're probably all male, and that has to do with the fact that the seed of the female tends to be rancid in smell and in taste. It has fan-shaped leaves with dichotomous branching. You can actually look, not only do the leaves have a dichotomous shape to them, but the veins on the leaves also have that same dichotomous branching. In Japan, the plant is called ichao, and it translates to tree with leaves like a duck's foot. And if you look at the pictures in the subsequent slides, you'll see that really is the case. It's a great common name. The seed is considered to be a delicacy. You let it rot to get rid of some of that rancid flesh. You grill it and then salt it to taste. The flesh of the seed, not only being rancid in taste and smell, it can cause a nasty rash. You may know some of the ethnobotanical uses for ginkgo biloba in that it's supposed to improve brain circulation. This isn't a fruit, it's a seed with a fleshy coating. Okay, that sounds a lot like a fruit, but botanically speaking, fruits are only in the Anthophyta, and we'll look at those on the next lecture. Leaves like a duck's foot. Those look like duck's feet to me. Here is the female and male. Again, this specimen is dioecious, so it is either a male tree or a female tree. There are no male and female trees. Our last phylum of Gymnosperm will be phylum Gnetophyta. This is a very different group of plants. In some cases, Gnetophyta looks more like flowers than cones. Some of them also don't look like big trees. They can grow as vines and shrubs, so this is very confounding. And that you may say to yourself, well, if it looks like a flower and it grows like a vine, how is it not an angiosperm? There are some closely related evidences that put them very close to the angiosperms. They have the same xylem, and that is the water and mineral conducting tissue in a plant. And they also undergo the same process of double fertilization. We'll cover that in the Anthophyta lecture. Again, they're mostly dioecious, and the ones that we'll look at are dioecious. They're fleshy seeds, but not true cones. And their leaves are all over the place, especially the one that you just saw, Welwitschia. This is Welwitschia, and you can see those leaves are huge. They look very grass-like. That is a specific design in order to catch water from the fog. It actually doesn't rain very much in the Namib Desert where they're found, so they use that sort of mountainous approach to catch fog water as moisture. There's the Welwitschia strobili. This plant is actually known to have accidental military protection, in that a lot of the times in the desert where it's found, there are some landmines in that area, and somehow nobody knows exactly where all the landmines are. So I've been told this plant has the very first accidental environmental protection. This is a Ephedra. It is a very drought-resistant plant with jointed stems. From this far off, it looks a little bit like one of the fern and fern allies you saw, Equisetum. It's called joint fir or Mormon's tea in North America. Native Americans would have used this in a tea to improve after-dinner digestion. And looking at that digestive property prompted some scientists to mimic one of the compounds found in ephedra called ephedrine as a weight loss drug. Unfortunately, it didn't go very well. The ephedrine that they produced in the lab did not end up doing the same thing that the natural ephedrine did, and I think it actually killed some people. It is trying to make a comeback, so good luck. Yeah, I told you some of these would look just like flowers, right? That's a very flower-looking structure, but they are not flowers. I don't know much about Netum. It just confuses me. I consider myself to be a fairly skilled field botanist, but this one really tests my limits. I mean, look at this. This is a plant that didn't read the book. It doesn't know that it's supposed to be a gymnosperm. Netum is the gymnosperm of the tropics. Has many of the same uses as you would find in the Coniferophyta, i.e. lumber. The males produce a cone similar to a catkin, which is a form of a flower. The females have a very naked cone, and they are, again, dioecious. They're either male or female. So the only cone-producing plant that we looked at that was monoecious was the Coniferophyta. So why would we study something that was so strange or didn't conform? Well, phylogenetically, it might be the closest ancestor we have to the angiosperms. And remember, the angiosperms are not a descended line from the gymnosperms, but rather a coevolution line. So this is important to study as it may be an evolutionary linkage.